Sheffield, they sold 6 million copies of their Pyromania LP. They were a bit busy in the States, so I decided to come to a country where they're not so popular to talk to them. Here we are in Australia, where their LP sales have been dwindling compared to those of Joan Sutherland.
Yeah, it's definitely helped us. Oh, yeah, all our parents have been exceptional. It's great.
It was I think they all really wanted to say, why don't you get a real job? You know,
I still get that one,
yeah.
Tom.
But
you could get a real job.
They kind of just let us go along with it for a while, and it worked out. You know, they were all keeping, well, my mum and dad were keeping secret scrapbooks all the time. They were saying, you'll never make it. You know.
But just in case you do.
Yeah.
We want to be on record.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's this pub in Sheffield, or it used to be called the Broadfield, which is play little gigs and whatever. And I've got a little clipping out of this Sheffield Star where for 4 nights it had the Comsat Angels, the Human League, Def Leppard, and somebody else has made it big since. All Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday like that.
Well, how can you convince your parents that you have done well, especially in the United States?
We flew them all out to LA, actually.
Yeah.
The whole lot. We'd done 2 nights at the Forum, which was sold out, and I mean, we had a great time anyway, but we couldn't believe it ourselves, let alone them. It freaked them out. I mean, my mum's never been out of England. So
They didn't want to go home.
No.
Yeah,
We
we
had to push them.
and said, watch this.
My dad spent the first hour watching the crowd, according to my mother.
It was probably one of the highlights of the actual tour, I mean, for us. I mean,
Yeah.
It was such a buzz, seeing them, like, just going, like, you know, our little boys up there doing all that, and it was amazing.
When you did your EP, how did you sell it, and who did you present it to in the hopes of getting a better deal?
Well, we initially had 1,000 pressed up, picture cover and all, their own label and everything, and we just sent them off to the NME, Sounds, Melody Maker and whatever, and sent a couple to about 2 or 3 to Radio 1 and all the independent stations all around.
Plus we were all selling them to friends.
Yeah.
Randy's got one picture.
Rent-A-Crowd bought the rest, and we got rid of like the remaining 900 or so in like 10 days. Just we happened to have like 2 shows in 1 week, and they all went, you know, in these shows. That created interest with these 2 guys in Sheffield who wanted to manage us. Unfortunately.
Is that what they did?
And so we ended up with a management deal, and we had a further. Hello. We had a further 16,000 made.
This is an edit point.
Pretty uncool. We've dropped anchor by any chance?
No,
remote chat.
Shall I carry
And
on?
they sold. You should carry on. You should carry on.
And we had a further 16,000. They were distributed through Pinnacle Records. And it got to 84 in the BBC charts, which is like phenomenal for a band with no record deal, which created all the interest. We ended up getting 2-page spreading Sounds, bits and bobs in all the other papers, and of course all the record companies who a year ago said, nah. Yeah.
One of the best things you ever did probably was get produced by Mutt Lange
Definitely.
for your second
Genius.
album.
The guy's a genius. He's the best.
He's a slave driver, but he's a genius.
Now, what would have attracted him to a group like yourself, who were relatively unproven when he was doing the top heavy groups in the world?
Well,
Probably a challenge, actually.
yeah, it could be that. He is very good friends with Peter Mensch, our manager, because Peter Mensch used to manage AC/DC and Mutt was producing AC/DC at the time, so there was a connection there. And I think Peter just played him our first album one day, and he said, well, yeah, it's not the best thing I've ever heard, but it shows promise.
Do you work hard to curry the favor of local radio?
Yeah, every time we kind of get into a town, either me and Sav or maybe, usually actually it was Steve and Phil, would toddle off to the old radio station and, you know, give them an hour's worth of jip or whatever. Definitely, it's the most important thing. It's far more important than the daily newspaper, I think.
Do you find that the DJs in America are pretty aware of your work?
They are now. Yeah. I hope so. They always appear to be when we get in town. It's great. You turn up to a town somewhere and look, you know, you scan the FM dial and you get 95.5 or wherever it is, and like It's normally your own songs blasting out when you get in. It's incredible when we were in Seattle. Every 20 minutes they were playing, you know, and we were 3 times an hour on the radio. It was boring.
You went down there, didn't you? And did a spot,
yeah,
DJ spot.
We were, what was that hotel in Seattle? Edgewater Inn. You fish out your window.
Fish out the window.
Yeah.
I had fishing rods. It's great.
You're giving it the fishing bit, and you've got the radio coming out the back, and it's, you know, it's Van Halen, Def Leppard, blah blah blah, all the time. It's incredible.
When you were recording Pyromania with Muddlang, did you feel it was a special album? Were you worried before it was released if it was going to be a hit?
We were apprehensive, but we all knew that we'd put a hell of a lot into it, and we had faith in the album and stuff. But we'd put everything in there. You know, if Pyromania hadn't have done anything, I don't think we'd be here now.
I think there was sort of a feeling that it was going to be really successful, but we didn't know to what degree it was going to be successful. We didn't think we were going to storm into the top 10 in the first 2 weeks we were released, sort of.
And stay there for 6
We knew
months.
there was a certain feeling about the album that it was going to be the most successful.
Well, surely it was the 3rd most successful album of the year in the United States. As it continued to tick over, did you
Second.
Well, there's a dispute between you and the police, and unfortunately, I think things like that can never really be settled, can they?
It was only Mr. Jackson that picked us at the post.
Yeah.
I thought you were thinking Flashdance for a minute.
Oh, I see. But isn't it true that when something like that goes in the States and just does stay there for months, that record companies have strategies of how can we keep it up there? What do we do next? And as you sat there in the top 5 month after month, were you in on any conversations as to how we're going to prolong the life of this baby?
Not at all. We just let it do it itself.
I think basically down to touring. Basically the main thing is down to touring. We're a lot of groups like Flashdance that obviously can't go on the road to promote it.
The film goes on.
We were there, yeah. We were down on tour for months.
Yeah. We don't really get that much involved. I mean, we're involved to the extent of being in control and having people do things for us that are physically impossible for us to do, because all the decisions are made in New York, but we're on tour somewhere in Texas or whatever, or even France, who knows, you know. But you just have people that you trust to make certain decisions for you. But I mean, we don't sit down and say this album has got to go to #1 next week, so here's $3,000, make it happen.
Yet in spite of the marvelous sales of the album, which must be around 6 million in the United States now,
Yeah.
heavy groups still don't get the press that somebody with a face or image like Boy George gets. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, it definitely is. There's an article in a weekly that's just come out now about Britain Rocks America again. It doesn't even mention us at all. Yet all the bands mentioned, you combine their sales together, doesn't total ours. You know, but I mean...
No, regardless of that, you know,
it doesn't
should have got a mention.
I mean, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can think, well, fair enough. You know, who cares anyway? We sold that and we know we've sold that. But at the same time, it would be nice if people actually, these supposed journalists that do this, you know, fact-finding bit, actually decided to think about somebody that doesn't dress up like a woman, you know, actually can make good music and sell records.
Photograph was, I suppose, the other really big one.
Yeah, that was totally rewritten in the studio, wasn't it? It's amazing.
Oh, we rewrote it.
It was during the World Cup. We stopped. We just packed in, you know, it was glued to the box. But now and again, every 4 or 5 hours, somebody would whip in and we were doing this. It was called Photograph. We weren't really happy with the verse. It sounded really poppy and horrible, didn't it? So Steve said, "Oh, you know, give me an hour," and he whipped off to his bedroom with a guitar and came back down with his. I've got this riff. So in he went and played it, and everybody went running out into the studio. So we could hear it through the wall. This is amazing, you know, and so the whole song totally changed circle.
You played at the Hammersmith Odeon last night, and the show had something of a surprise ending. It was a surprise to me. I'm sure you knew what was going to happen, but someone came on stage, did not they?
Brian May is probably our biggest fan, and we're probably his biggest fan. But it was, I mean, for him to come. I mean, if you can understand that, I mean, sort of early days of Def Leppard, that was sort of like influence-wise. It was, I mean, you've heard sort of Queen vocals and this, that and the other, guitar sounds, the whole bit. If you can understand that is like, for us,
is such a you know, an ego boost. Is getting somebody like Brian May up on stage.
And you actually played a Queen song. It was an old Queen song that you played as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, Brian's been on stage with you before, because I came to see you in Los Angeles a few years back, and he got up on stage with you then as well.
That's right. We did Travelling Band, sung by Creedence Clearwater. So he's actually thinking about joining the band.
I understand that he also gave you each a complete set of Queen's back catalogue in CD form.
Yes, you're quite right. You're quite right. Which is
a nice present.
which is like what, 16 albums or so. Which is it? It is.
Maybe you should invite him on stage more often, see what else he can come up with.
I think we should.
Now, Joe Elliott mentioned on stage last night that Def Leppard have had quite a few ups and downs in their careers, and certainly what appears to be a major setback was when you lost your arm in the car crash. But at no point were you ever out of the band, it appears.
No, it's actually brought the band a lot closer together, I think. You know, and there was never really a point where anybody said, well, Rick, it's like this. You know, we can't really. They kind of left the decision up to me.
Right.
In the same way, I was sort of leaving the decision up to them. But the progression was really good.
So was there ever a point when you felt, I'm not going to be able to do this, I can't carry on with the band, I'm going to let them down?
No, nobody would let me do that. You know, my family, sort of the band, and literally thousands and thousands of letters, you know, coming in. So I thought, if I don't carry on, I'm going to be letting so many people down. So there was never a thought.
Right. Now, obviously, you had to have your drum kit modified in order to play. I think you're using your left foot a lot more, aren't you now? The normal drummers do.
Yeah, a lot more. But I mean, everybody sort of says, oh, you know, Rick's special drum kit, but it's all actually off-the-shelf equipment. It's either Simmons equipment or Akai or these pedals what I use called shark pedals. And the only difference is using so many pedals in line. Like there are people that use pedals, you know, fair enough, but not that many in line. That's the only difference. I pretty much play everything I used to play with my left arm with my left foot there.
So were you thinking about all this when you were lying in hospital recovering from the accident?
I was, because I broke my right arm quite badly, and to stop me sort of sliding down the bed, what they did, they put this big chunk of foam at the bottom of the bed. So I started tapping my feet on this big piece of foam, and I thought, yeah, I could use that, you know. And then the wheelchair was pretty good as well, you know, a couple of foot plates, you know.
I think your first official comeback gig, there was a couple of warm-ups, was at last year's Castle Donington Festival. You played in front of many thousands of fans on your own with the band. There wasn't two drummers, it was just you there. Was that very emotional for you?
It was, very much so. We've got my mum and dad standing over on stage left. We've got all these people, and when Joe introduced me, I was like totally blown away. I mean, the amount of sort of respect I was feeling from the audience. I was sitting up there sort of crying all over my pads, you know. I'm thinking I'm going to get electrocuted or something any minute, you know. But it was really very special.
Yeah. How does it feel to have the European fans on your side after, well, the band's been together 10 years now, hasn't it?
Well, it's great. It's been a long time, and we've always had that success the other side of the Atlantic. But it's just a question of, you never knew whether it was going to happen in Europe, because you can never gauge it. England, France, Germany, you never really know. And it's just great that it's coming right now.
Because there has been a certain amount of resentment against Def Leppard in the past, because I think people felt you only cared about America and didn't think about the fans.
I think that was quite a long time ago, really. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, people have been realising that we never were like that anyway. We just basically try and make records the way that you want them to sound, and it's not for any specific motives or for any particular territory. It just so happened that we did get well received in America with our first album, which was like 8 years ago now.
That's right.
And you know, I think it just went on from there, but I think people realise now that you just do it for genuine reasons.
Yeah. Well, the new album, Hysteria, went straight into the charts in the UK at #1. Was that a great surprise to the band?
Surprise, shock. We're still shocked that we still can't believe it, to be quite honest. I mean, to go in at #1 is great, but straight into the charts at #1, it's unbelievable. We just never thought it'd happen.
It must be also nice, because I think a lot of people felt you wouldn't be able to follow up the previous album, Pyromania, which was generally regarded as being a real classic, a landmark album, so it's a tough one to follow.
Yeah, it was a tough one to follow, and to be quite honest, everybody knows we spent ages trying to follow the thing up. But we're happy with the new record. We think it is different enough in a progressive way, but still keeping the Def Leppard sound. It's still got the guitars in there. But we just wanted to just vary it a little bit, and we're really pleased the way it came out.
Obviously, you didn't want to make Pyromania Part 2 or Son of Pyromania. You wanted to show the band had moved on.
Yeah, that was the main thing. I mean, to be quite honest, we got to the stage where we could have literally brought out a Pyromania 2 almost a year after since we finished touring on Pyromania, but that's the last thing we wanted to do. And we kind of think that there's been one or two Pyromania 2 albums out anyway by other bands.
I think certain bands have even come out and admitted that they were very influenced, if not ripped off that album.
That's fine. I mean, we don't mind that at all. I mean, we took our influences from some people, and we find it a great compliment if people do the same to us, really. You know?
But
there's no bitterness or anything like that.
I think the new album shows a slightly different set of influences from the band. Because before it was sort of UFO, Thin Lizzy. Maybe now it's a bit more varied.
It is a lot more varied. It's just a question of listening to more things, a wider range of things, and still incorporating it with your standard, people might say typical hard rock sound, you know.
Well, certainly the album was a long time in the making. I think it was about 3 years altogether, something like that. How do you keep yourself motivated over that longer period of time?
It's a question of you got to be very single-minded about your attitude to it. If you have an idea in your head how you want it to sound, you can't be forced to be swayed either way. And as long as you just keep that direction, and unfortunately we were working with a producer that thinks the same way as us. Right. And if anybody does start thinking, oh, that'll do, he always says, no, it won't do. It's not good enough. And it makes us do it again, you know.
Well, the producer was Matt Lang. Did a very fine job on the record.
Yeah. He's a great producer. He's
a genius, isn't he? Really?
He really is, yeah. I mean, he's worked wonders for loads of bands, Foreigner, Cars, AC/DC, you know. He's just a terrific guy and a really great producer.
After your show at Hammersmith last night, there was an informal gathering at a restaurant in London, attended by many people, including Spandau Ballet. Are you a fan of Spandau Ballet?
We're good friends of them.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say fans, but we like them as people. You know.
Well, where did you meet up with them?
In Dublin, when we were doing parts of the studio record. They were recording and basically rehearsing in Dublin for quite a while. And at one stage it was great because there was ourselves, Spandau, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Thompson Twins, and a couple of some other people. But it was a bit like, and Dublin's not that big a city really. It was like a very confined space, and it was great. We basically knew each other for 6 months, and we had some great laughs. Yeah, they're really nice people, great guys.
Well, I've already mentioned that the new album, Hysteria, took quite a long time to record, about 3 years, I think it was, something like that, in fact. But it's finally with us at the moment. It must have taken up a lot of studio time. How much did the record cost at the end of the day?
A lot of money. It didn't actually take 3 years to record. We were in the studio for about 2 years, and I don't exactly know the rates of studios, but if £500 a day is quite cheap, so you can work it out yourself.
No, but not this morning.
No, I wouldn't want to any particular morning.
I think part of the reason why it took maybe longer than expected was you originally started with the producer Jim Steinman, who's worked with Meatloaf in the past, and Jim didn't seem to work out with you very well.
No, we realised after a very short time that his way of recording was totally different to the way that we thought it should be done. Because we'd worked with Mutt for, what, 2 albums?
Right.
So our standards were just so much higher. I mean, it was like he'd try and take something out of whatever we put on tape, but it isn't really like that. With us, we like to think it's either right or it's wrong. You know, there's no sort of in between.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of
perfectionism.
It was just a total mismatch.
It was.
That's all. I mean, he had his ways of recording people, and we had ours, and we just couldn't compromise.
Well, there was also a story going around that he wanted to change the colour of the carpet in the recording studio.
Well, that isn't quite true, but he did actually change his carpet in his hotel room.
His hotel room, yeah.
He did. That's fact.
Yeah.
Well, after Jim Stallman went, I think you tried to record the album yourselves with an engineer, and that didn't work out either.
Well, what happened? We ended up. I think we fell in the trap at that particular stage of trying to do a Pyromania too, and it was like it was sounding really good, but it didn't have a freshness about it. And it wasn't until Mutt came back on the scene that he injected that freshness and a sort of positive direction. 'Cause what we were doing sounded okay, but it just wasn't special enough. That was the problem. And when Mutt came, he really put the polish on it, if you like.
Yeah. Well, certainly it's turned out well. It's a big worldwide success. How many records have Def Leppard sold worldwide, would you say now?
I wouldn't know. Maybe 12 million. I don't know.
Well, I wish you all the success with this new one. I'm sure it's going to be very well indeed. I think we should go and comb my hair now.
I spent ages getting it done up.
I need aspirins, not thunderbolts, for goodness sake. Dear. Anyway, welcome back to another totally exciting show. My guest this week is Mr. Joe Elliott of Def Leppard. I should be asking him why it's taken him years to do his new album and why it's gone straight to #1 and all that stuff. But I'm not going to. Instead I'm going to ask you about this party we were at. It was a good party, wasn't it?